Hi, I'm here with Dave Jones. He's a management systems consultant with over 40 years experience in the automotive manufacturing industry. He recently completed calibration training with a major OEM for us, and we thought it would be a good idea to discuss how organizations can benefit from a more robust gauge management process. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Paul.
What are the top issues relative to calibration?
I would say first is managing the overall process. That is, having what I call a gauge management process. It goes beyond just calibration these days. It's about having procedures, practices, and processes in place to make sure that all the instruments used for qualifying the product are where they need to be. Secondly, is having the right tools and training. The right tools meaning software, having the right resources in place, and making sure people truly understand how to manage that software, know what that software can do for you, and know what has to happen with, say, the procurement side of the house, with bringing outside gauge suppliers in, as well as those that perform outside calibrations. And third, and what I consider probably most important, is audit prep. Whether it's for an internal audit or an external audit, you need to prepare in advance, not the day or week before, but always be ready for an audit. Because when an audit ends, you should be preparing for the next audit.
So what can organizations do to address these?
Well, as far as managing the process, you have to have the right people in place. You have to know that the folks that are in there truly understand what has to happen. And then the next step would be making sure senior management understands it. Too often, the folks that operate the gauge management side of the house, get it. But management doesn't understand the cost related to having outside calibrations done, say overtime that's needed prior to an audit. They need to know. Secondly, having the right tools and training, get a software program that can do the job for you. Nothing over the top, but something that you can look at based on what somebody else has already used. If you know somebody who's another supplier that has a good program in place, you get that, make sure people are trained on it, and make sure folks truly understand how to manage that group, how to recall the instruments, get them in the system, and work on the corrective action process. As far as audit prep goes, that's always difficult. Everybody's always behind the 8 ball because of lack of resources and time that's not allowed. You always have to know where you're at, and more importantly, where you're not. What gauges are out there, what gauges are lost. Are there lost tool reports in place? If there's a problem with certificates of calibration not being received, are you getting them? Are you assessing the risk associated with those certificates? All that will come up in these audits. It should come up, obviously, in the internal audits, but plan on a third-party auditor finding something that you normally would not look at.
And what type of investment and commitment are we looking at here?
Investment and commitment is, for the most part, time. The investment is in the people, it's in the resources that are going to make it happen. The time, it's not so much time as doing the best you can with the time that's given you. But you only can make good use of time if you know what you're doing. That's why having the right folks in there, making sure senior management understands, whether it's through a management review or subcommittees, say on gauge management, that a lot of organizations have, let them know the struggles you're having getting purchase orders put through to get outside calibration services done, or actually getting physical calibrations done. That's key. Let them know, and that'll help keep the process rolling.
Okay, and sitting from the management chair, you would look at this. What's the ROI?
I think the ROI is pretty simple. If you can attach a figure to it, a monetary figure to it, that this is what it's going to cost me, then you've already had a hiccup. You've already had a problem, and that's not good. This is supposed to be a preventive action. Unfortunately, we're more so in the corrective action mode. We're reactive all the time. Put the investment in, know where you're at, know where you're not, and you won't have to worry about it. You don't have to add extra people, that is, more resources, more capital to managing something. You just have to know what's required and keep at it, keep management informed. Sometimes there are hiccups, that's fine. Put a good corrective action in place, make sure people understand it, make sure it's effective, and you can measure the effectiveness of it over time. You can react to things that go wrong, just make sure they don't recur.
You work with both OEMs and suppliers. What would you recommend to OEMs? What would you recommend to suppliers?
I would recommend the same thing. OEMs have exactly the same issues as suppliers and then sub-suppliers to those suppliers. It's management of the system, we're always behind. Sometimes we overcomplicate things, whether it's with putting gauge stickers on everything that we can't seem to find when we need them. It's not having the right people. It's not having a system of recall where we have to go out and find the instrument. It's lost. It's been lost for 3-4 weeks, 3-4 months. It shows up somewhere else because there's no system of recall and reaction. So an OEM will have the same problem as an actual supplier, maybe not as severe, but it has a bigger impact because if it's a vehicle, it's out the door. And now containment becomes that much harder. So always be ahead of the game, and when an issue happens, make sure you react to it quick enough so if there is a containment, you can do it right there and not have to go beyond and go outside.
Oh, that's very interesting. That's all the time we have for now. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome.